Thank you so much for being here and taking the time out really to truly appreciate you connecting and joining in for this topic that may not be super fun. I think we're going to have fun together, but the topic itself, it's a little bit inward. We're going to be flipping the external to the internal to see what is there. And I think it's a really poignant and necessary conversation to have, as so many clients that I work with are suffering with depression, anxiety. You yourself, or you definitely will know someone very close to you that also has suffered or is suffering, being challenged with loss, with death, with grief, with heartache, with all forms of loss that we have. So my intention for this evening's webinar, the title being Navigating the Darkness, was to help, maybe not help, I don't really appreciate that word in the form of healing. Let me say my intention is to share with you simply part of my experiences, and hopefully some of that will assist you. Maybe there'll be a golden nugget of insight that could be a catalyst for transformation in your life. Maybe some of you will also share on this call things that have worked for you, that help you, that feed you, that inspire you also, and how you work through your own dark night of the soul, or how you navigate the darkness in your own life. Because let's be honest here, we have and live in a world of duality, of the darkness and the light. And tonight, I really want to dive into the darkness, opposed to the sugarcoating that so often happens in yoga classes, the yoga scene, so to speak, as well as our day-to-day, right? Someone asks you, how are you? Fine, whether that's true or not. And we say that because no one's really expecting us to be like, I'm actually not doing very well, unless it's someone close to us. But you do that in the supermarket, and people aren't necessarily wanting that answer or prepared for it. So thank you for joining me on Navigating the Darkness. And I hope that you're able to stick around to the end. I'm going to go through the class and give some insights. And then at the end, we'll have some Q&A time as well for any questions or anything you would like to share at all. And I also have a really exquisite program that I've just created. Well, I've spent the last 9 months creating, and you guys will be the first to hear about it. And also the first to see my new website that is not at all ready, but you guys are going to get a sneak peek into it. And it's kind of a work in process. And what I've realized is life is a little bit messy, and it's not perfect, and it will unravel in its own good time. So you guys will get the first opportunity to have a peek at that anyway, and see the transformation between now and hopefully next week when it will be ready. So some of you I know and have met before, and thank you again for being here, and for those of you watching the call afterwards. And for those of you who don't know me and don't know perhaps why I am going to be speaking about what I'm speaking tonight, I would love to just take a couple of moments and share a little bit about my story and my path for you to give some context and set the stage for this evening's class. So as many of you know, I'm an Ayurvedic practitioner, practicing in Vancouver, Canada, and also doing Skype sessions all over the world. And I'm a yoga teacher, and I started teaching yoga about 17 years ago after coming back from the Bihar School of Yoga in India and having a lot of deep transformation and experiences there that kind of rocked my world and my inner and outer environments. And it was really prior to that I was sent on to my spiritual path, quote unquote. I don't really love that word spiritual, but there you go. After a dance injury, I was studying contemporary dance at Simon Fraser University, and really was just like, this is my dream. I want to do this, and got injured pretty early on. So that sent me off to travel, and ending up in India, and ended up at this ashram at the Bihar School of Yoga studying. I got my spiritual name, Madhuri, there. I was there for 6 months. I slept on a little wooden bed thing. I cleaned toilets at 4 a.m. It was quite a great time. And then I kept taking students back to India over the years and assisting a Swami at some of his retreats there. And on one of my journeys there, I got extremely sick. Sick to the point where I got back to Canada eventually after traveling through Asia, realized I'd gone from being able to dance, 6 hours a day to not being able to walk up a flight of stairs without being exhausted. Long story short, I went to the foreign disease specialist and they did all the tests. They finally came back and were like, well, there's nothing wrong with you at all. And that was the most devastating answer I could have heard. I just wanted to know, well, what's wrong? If there's a problem, then we'll fix it. And they couldn't. And that feeling of complete, helplessness is what sent me to study Ayurveda and figure out how I could heal myself. And I did. I used the principles, used the practices of Ayurveda, the herbs, the protocols, but it was a 7-year process. I was sick for over 7 years. The final piece of me healing, and I think it is still sort of a work in progress, but the final piece was me training in something called bioenergy healing, a form of energy work that I felt was the missing piece. The Ayurveda was great, but it was just that missing piece to really work on the pranamaya kosha, the energy body, and get the deep healing there. So very grateful for all of these systems of healing, of yoga, of Ayurveda, of bioenergy healing, of the tantric sciences, of the martial arts, of dance. Like, I really feel there's so much value in all of these beautiful art forms and sciences that I've been able to draw upon in my life. So all of this led to kind of where I am in my life right now. The real kind of deep inspiration for this topic of navigating the darkness was the loss of my partner, who died suddenly and tragically about 2.5 years ago. And it's been the last 2.5 years a very deep and painful process of peeling away layers, of feeling completely broken, of completely lost hope, and building all of that back up again. And that's the dark night of the soul that I've been through, or it feels like many in this lifetime, in various forms of loss. I've been divorced. I've had the illness I spoke to you about. I've had other different illnesses and just a lot of weird stuff happening. And the teaching, the learnings that I've been able to receive from these initiations, so to speak, have been very profound and not easy. It has not been at all easy, but I do believe that we're not thrown anything that we can't handle, and that there's a choice in it. And the choice is how we're going to deal with what life brings to us, or what is moving through our sphere at any given time. So essentially, how do we respond to life, and to especially the darkness as the darkness comes? And if we don't have a foundation, sometimes I wondered after my partner died, like, gosh, I feel like I wish I had a foundation of something. And I had some really good friends point out, like, you've just spent like almost the last 20 years meditating and doing yoga and these practices, and I don't know if they helped. People tell me that, yes, they've helped. Like, this is, amazing. And perhaps that's true. I don't know where I would be if I didn't have a willingness and a certain mindset to seek out the light, to expand, to evolve, to grow beyond the circumstance. So becoming bigger than the obstacles we face. So I also want to preface all of this in tonight's call with, I'm not a psychologist, I'm not a counselor. What I'm sharing with you is simply from my personal experience. So just take it all with a grain of salt and really take what resonates with you. This is a group call. So obviously in a group session, it's different than the communication we would have a one-on-one session. It just is. When I'm working with you one-on-one, I'm more present to you specifically. When I'm working in a group call setting, I'm hoping to touch each and every one of you, even though I haven't met some of you, but to reach and to share and to give you something of value. That is truly my hope and my intention, that whatever you need this evening, you will receive. Whatever you need to hear, feel, see, that you will receive that in this class together this evening. So by the end of our time, as promised, here are the things that we're going to explore. So what to do or not do in the face of anxiety, grief, loss, anger, and depression. And I know that's a big, like those are all, each and every one of those categories are big. I get that. Number 2, the importance of the shadow side of ourself, the dark aspect of ourself, and how to work with the shadow. Number 3, why forgiveness isn't always what you need to do. Now, I know some of you are like, what? So just hold on, we'll get there. Number 4, the number 1 tool, and honestly, I feel like I'm alive today because of this tool, and I'm going to share it with you this evening. The number 1 tool that I use to move through the biggest nightmare of my life, and you can use it too. Anyone can use this, no matter where you're at in your life. Even if you're cruising and things are pretty good in your life, you too can use this tool that I just have found to be invaluable. And the 5th thing is how to be at peace with your past, no matter what has happened. I know some of you have been through trauma, through tragedy. Some of you will one day go through trauma or tragedy or great loss. This is the nature of our existence. So learning and creating a foundation and learning tools and practicing before the waves come is just like in Ayurveda, right? We work preventatively. That's ideal. Unfortunately, most of us aren't concerned about working preventatively because we don't know what is ahead. But we can use wherever we're at in our life right now, the small upsets, the small aggravations to do the work, to do the practice. So let's start off with number 1, what to do or not do in the face of anxiety, grief, loss, anger, and depression. So here's the thing. This is what I think is the most important, is to not suppress and not indulge. So you're dancing on that line. There's a fine line between suppressing what we're feeling. That's never going to be beneficial. We always want to feel the impulse, the sensation, whatever is arriving for us physically, mentally, emotionally. However, if we get caught in the loop of the story associated with the sensation in the body, with the emotion, if we get caught in this attachment of the story to that, we'll loop around and around and around. And that's anxiety, that's depression, is the loop. It's not the initial feeling or sensation that comes. So you don't want to suppress, but you also don't want to indulge. So if you have a hurt, or you have a frustration, if you have someone you feel has betrayed you or hurt you, that you have been holding on to for months, years, decades, you're in that loop. And that's okay, but you have to recognize you're in that loop first of all. And then if you want to get out of that loop, you need willingness. And without the willingness, well, you'll just stay in that loop. There has to be a willingness to move beyond, to see things differently, as A Course in Miracles would say. So what we have to practically do in the face of anxiety, of grief, of loss, of anger, of depression, essentially any sensation, any emotion that takes us out of our peace, that causes suffering, what we have to do first of all is feel it. And then coming into the body, come into the breath, because the breath is the bridge between the mind and the body, and it's connected to the nervous system. So breathing. And then what I like to do at that point is to label or acknowledge. So you can simply call out, like, I'm experiencing anxiety, I'm experiencing depression. It's not, I am depressed. So you're not taking that ownership. You're experiencing a transient feeling, emotion. It may be one you've felt for 20 years, but the minute we label or we attach, so in yoga we call this the ahankara, the ego-ness, and it's very subtle, but this is important, how we speak to ourselves. And everything that we put after I am, whether that's I am amazing, I am beautiful, or I'm an idiot, or I'm depressed, that comes into the psyche. Those are some scars or mental impressions that actually come into the body. So it's important how we label, how we speak about ourselves, how we speak about our experiences. So depending where you are on the span of anxiety, of grief, of loss, of anger, of depression, if you're caught in the moment of that trigger, it's going to be very, very difficult to retract that. You can't. So the practice, and which I'll get to a little bit down the road here, you want to work preventatively or start with those smaller upsets, the smaller frustrations, to do the stopping, to feeling, being your broad body, to label or acknowledge what's happening. And in that practice, and it sounds a little bit silly, but you'll get more and more familiar with what is the lead up to the larger upsets. And I'm just using upset as a term. That could be depression, anxiety, anger, frustration, grief, loss. So there's the event, and often there's an event. So for me, the loss of my partner was the event. There's the story or myriad of stories that I associated with that. And then there's the reality of the present moment. And the reality of the present moment is often very different than what we're looping in the mind. And that's where suffering is created, in the distortion of reality, essentially. So the yogis would say that we want to cultivate an observer attitude. We cultivate that witness. And this is what we're doing in practice all throughout the day. What I didn't get for about the first decade of my practice was that it's not just awareness that we're cultivating, because awareness, we can just beat ourselves up over the head, or it can drive us crazy because we become so aware of every nuance, of every word, of every thought, of every feeling, and it can literally be too much when we're hyper aware. But it's not awareness that we need to cultivate, but it's compassionate awareness. And there's a big difference. So we're not just observing, but we're observing with the heart, with the space of how you would observe a child that is suffering. So for those of you who have children or around children, this is the same way we need to caretake ourselves. Is every negative thought that we say about ourselves that eventually wears us down and down and down, that destroys the flow of prana, of energy through our body, that breaks things down a cellular level, that creates dis-ease, that every negative thought that is created and manifested over and over and over again through the nervous system, right? And we get that pulsation, and then it just becomes a habit, a way of thinking, and then that just becomes a way of being. And we think, oh, this is just who I am. I'm just depressed. And this is just who I am. I'm just anxious. Because we haven't separated the truth of who we are from the story, the loop that we're caught in. So the cultivation of that compassionate observer, that when we observe our negative, our judgment of ourself or another, that's not one more reason to beat ourselves up. But in the words of Matt Kahn, is like, love what arises. So whatever arises, the anger, the frustration, you don't have to love the anger, the depression, the grief, but love the one who's moving through it. Love the one who's having the most painful, awful experience. That's a big difference. You don't have to love that you're angry, but love the one who's moving through that experience. That alone can really transform your life in seeing that. Okay, number 2, the importance of the shadow. So the shadow, the dark aspect of self, how do we work with that? So life is duality, sun and moon, ha and ta, light and dark, day and night. Without the duality, without that contrast, then we're not provided with the beauty too, the joy. And most people don't let themselves go into the darkness, and they never really allow themselves to move into the light either. It's kind of, a lot of people just stay in that gray zone, the mediocrity of life, the how are you fine place. When you allow yourself to be broken open and to feel and to be present with that tender heart of that wounded place, that hurt place deep inside, when you allow yourself to be present with that, you're giving yourself permission to move into greater stages, phases, experiences of joy, of lightness, of appreciation, of happiness, of contentment. So that bandwidth expands on both ends. And then there's the conscious choice of, well, where do we want to stay? And then if you want to stay in destructive energy, that darkness, you can. It's not wrong or bad. It's just a different experience. in the quality, in that energy of destruction, than being in the energy of creation. So you're either in creation energy or destruction energy, or stagnant, which may even be a worse place to be. So you can ask yourself and reflect on that. Am I in constructive energy or destructive energy right now? Is this thought constructive or destructive? Is this emotion constructive or destructive? I like that because it's just very simply looking at it. No judgment. Just, is this energy constructive or destructive? Take the judgment out. We're all human. We're all moving through a myriad of emotions, every hour of the day, for goodness sake, right? We're not stationary. We're not this. There is that equanimous through line that we can cultivate and deepen so that we can come home faster. And what I mean by home is come to that stillness, come to that peace inside. But if we don't have that foundation, if we haven't cultivated that ease and that peace, if we don't know that experience, it's very hard to come back to it. So when the going is good, when you're in the flow of your life, when things are great, that's the time to practice. Because if you wait until the world crumbles around you, it will be very difficult to tap into this. But if you've been practicing, then you have something like a little string, a little thread to hold on to. So it's important that we do ride these waves as humans, but that we don't become a slave to the wave, that we don't believe in totality our thoughts, our emotions, even our own beliefs. And think of something that you believed 10 years ago, a belief about food, about health, about relationships, about you name it. A belief is just a belief. It's going to change. And hopefully it will, right? Hopefully we'll have different beliefs in 10 years' time, in 20 years' time, because we're evolving as humans, as a society, as a culture, right? How long ago was it that doctors were smoking in their own office? And now, could you imagine walking into a doctor's office and they light up a cigarette? Maybe I should do that in my Ayurveda practice. See what happens. So yogis speak about equanimity, but this is very different from numbing or disassociating. And I think that can get confused in spiritual circles, that we kind of leapfrog over. We think, oh, I'm not supposed to feel anything. I'm supposed to be equanimous in my mind. And what often can happen is we just shut down, we numb out or disassociate. That's not at all what I'm talking about. And you'll know, hopefully you'll have that awareness for yourself if that's where you go when things, when your nervous system gets activated. So this whole suppression of the shadow shows up everywhere in our culture, from TV, media, Facebook, right? We're all presenting a picture of, we're editing out the shadow from our life to present what is good. And I don't think there's anything necessarily wrong about that. It's kind of natural, and in a way, we don't want to always be just, oh, here's the shadow, and indulging in that either. But it becomes a little bit warped because we stop getting a sense of other humans' experiences. So we look on Facebook and we're like, oh my God, everyone's life is great and mine's shit. And what am I doing wrong? And oh my God, I'm here alone, depressed, and everybody else has this great life, and blah, blah, blah. And it can create more of the isolation and loneliness. And then we hear this from a young age, right? Like, we have to be a certain way. We're not supposed to cry. We're supposed to have a stiff upper lip. We're supposed to be seen and not heard. All of the things. Be strong, right? Like, whatever your parents programmed you with, because perhaps they weren't able to deal with you or emotion, we carry that until we wake up from it. After my partner died, I had a very close family member say to me, be strong. Like, that was some kind of badge of honor. And I'm thinking, I don't want to be strong. I can't be strong. And there's no freaking point in being strong right now, because I just want to crumble to a pile on the floor. So being strong is, I think, a really, really bad advice for most times. It's like, can we be vulnerable? can we allow ourselves the depth of our pain and to really honor that and not have to buffer that? Because until we do that, if we're trying to be strong for our kids, for our family, for whatever, then that anxiety, then that stress will just build and build and build because it has no outlet. There's nowhere for that flow of energy to move through until we really face it head on. And oftentimes that means falling apart. And oftentimes that means our life falling apart, and being in that deconstructive phase. And there's nothing wrong with deconstruction, because after that energy, right, that Shiva energy of everything is gone, then what comes? It's springtime, right? It's creation. And we're so allergic to death and destruction, to anything falling apart or rotting in our society. And I think that is where a lot of our fear and our suffering is rooted from, right? We're afraid to get old. We're afraid to get wrinkles. We're afraid of things changing. And as we all know, the only thing we can count on is that things are going to change. Everything is going to change. So the acceptance of our shadow, I think this is what I want to leave you with on this topic of the shadow, is the acceptance, maybe even the celebration of our shadow, like owning it, owning the fullness of your human experience, that you're not just nice and pretty and kind, that there's a deep, dark well inside of you. And there's a lot of power there. And when that energy can be channeled, then this is transformation. But the dismissal of, the suppression of, leads to exhaustion, depression, people walking around in life like they're just a shell. So acceptance of the shadow, acceptance that, oh, I'm judging somebody. Okay, I'm accepting the judgment of myself. It doesn't mean I'm going to stay there, but it means I'm going to meet myself head on and honestly see where my blind spots are. Number 3 is why forgiveness isn't always what you need to do. Again, we can get tripped up in, especially in spiritual circles and spiritual teachings, like we're supposed to just love and forgive everybody. And that's great if you can. But my experience is that we can't force forgiveness, otherwise it backfires and it really isn't forgiveness. So you can't just sit down one day like, I'm going to forgive. And that's not forgiveness. It's almost like forgiveness has to let go of you. And then it's like a grace washes through us. And that's the forgiveness. We can't arrive there until we arrive there. We can't rush forgiveness. And if we do, anger, resentment, all of these feelings that we have, feelings of betrayal, we can't manipulate it out of our system. We can't trick it out of our system. So again, we have to be with what we're feeling. And there's practices that we can do, yes, to either move into that constructive energy, or we all know how it feels to stay in that destructive energy. So what I would say, instead of trying to forgive, because if you're trying to forgive, it's not working, but is to focus on the light. So every time we choose light, every time we choose to focus on the light, the darkness has less power. The darkness, the shadow, becomes smaller. So instead of fighting the shadow, instead of fighting the darkness, whether that's the anger, the resentment, the bitterness, focus on the light. And if it's someone that you're trying to forgive, focus on what you love about them, or at least what you like about them. Forgiveness will come in its own good time. It really is that divine timing of things. And I really believe that forgiveness is a result of us shifting perspective. I'm willing to see this differently, as it says in A Course in Miracles. So I'm willing to see this differently. So forgiveness is a combination of a different perspective, of rewiring the nervous system, and of grace. And when we have that triad of things, that combination of things, forgiveness happens. So now we come to the most valuable tool that I've used in my life to heal my nervous system. You'll hear me talk. I talk a lot about the nervous system. I talk a lot about this in my Ayurvedic practice. I talk a lot about this in my Ayurvedic yoga teacher training, because our nervous system is really the gauge, the barometer of what's going on, what those old habitual patterns are that most of us are operating from on a day-to-day basis. We're operating from a conditioned, patterned way that the nervous system has been imprinted, and often it's in a state of, maybe it's just subtle, but that subtle fight or flight response, that subtle state of background anxiety, that subtle state of depression. But that programming of the nervous system can be reworked, absolutely can be reworked. And I say this because I have reworked my nervous system, or I would say it's constantly a work in progress, as different things move into our life, how we respond to them, how they impact us. Then we get a gauge of where we're at. In yoga, this is called, when we're working on changing negative thinking, in yoga, this is called pratipaksha bhavana. So this is when we're essentially reprogramming the neural pathways. And I'm going to give you kind of the Coles Notes version of this evening. I did a talk at Wanderlust Speakeasy that's on YouTube and on my website, that you can go and watch that 20-minute video if you're interested in more details about this. And also at the end of our class tonight, I will tell you about an opportunity about working with me, where we will go do a deep dive into this specific tool so that you can really get it, not as theory, not as, oh, this is a nice idea, oh, that sounds nice, let me make a note of that, but on how can I apply this and implement this in my life so I have the embodiment and the tool that will last me my whole life. So when we're working with the nadis, the channels, the srotas, even, we're clearing out space in these channels of the body. And when space is blocked, when prana or energy is blocked in the body, we'll get pain, we'll get dis-ease. And in the mental, in manas, in the mental channels, if there's blockage there, or a cloudiness or a heaviness, then this channel, this pathway that the mind moves through will be distorted. Which for many of us it is. We're not seeing reality. We're not seeing through clear eyes. We're seeing through our distorted, programmed ahankar or ego. So there will always be suffering there. And what I like about this technique is it's a doorway, it's a pathway out of suffering, and it's simple. So the essence of this technique is to take whatever thought is creating suffering for you. So you take that thought. You can even think of one right now, maybe just something not the biggest issue in your life, but some small irritation or frustration. Just think of that. You can even write that down right now. And write it down how you hear it in your head, how you hear it in your mind. And the key here is to find a thought that feels a little bit better. So we're not doing the whole positive affirmation thing where we pretend that everything's okay when it's not. There is a time and a place for sankalpa, for affirmation, but typically it doesn't work because we're like, my life is great. And really we're thinking my life is shit, or like I'm going through hell. And so we're not energetically aligned with the affirmation. So for affirmations to work, we have to be in the vicinity of that energy to amplify that. So instead of jumping from being in a place of frustration, of pain, of disempowerment, of boredom, of anger, and to jumping and pretending that life is okay, what I propose to you is to just make that 2-degree shift. So you're finding a thought that feels a little bit better. And if you can't find a thought that feels a little bit better, it doesn't have to be on the same topic, especially if it's a really sticky topic or a really difficult topic. That in that case, you just go to a general thought. Maybe you have a cat that you love, or children that delight you, or a great grandmother that brings you joy. So when you go general, you can think about anything that is real and true for you that brings you great happiness. So how I did this in my life, after my partner's death, like the night times were the hardest and the most excruciating, and I would lie down in bed, and that's when just like the torment of nightmarish thoughts would return and be very present. And so what I would have to do is go general. And so my general thoughts were something like this, like I'm lying in a comfortable bed and I have a duvet cover on top of me, and my head is lying on this pillow. So it's bringing me into present moment reality. Now, maybe about 1 second later, I would be back in that loop. So my practice was moment to moment awareness of returning to reality. And what this did over time, it's shifted my energy back to a place of thriving and out of that place of suffering. Now, it's a practice. It's very simple, but it's not necessarily easy, and you have to have willingness. Most people don't have the dire need to practice this because maybe you're going through your life, maybe you got a little anxiety, maybe a little depression, but is your desire for freedom stronger? For me, my desire was life or death. It was like, I either do this or I don't want to be here anymore. And I did this practice over and over and over again for months, for years, until the new neural pathways were established. Now, for you, it probably won't take that amount of time if you're willing, because there's not a trauma perhaps that's like right in your face that you're having to move through in real time. So you find a better feeling thought than the one you just had. And even if you're feeling great in your life, so even in this moment, if you're like, wow, I feel pretty good, feel better. Take it to the next level. How could you feel even better in the space of your mind? So thoughts are created to are linked to our feelings and our experiences. So finding a better feeling thought, if you can't, you just go general. You find something that you can truly appreciate. Something, anything that you can truly, often I'll look to nature. I'll just look out the window, be like, wow, that tree is really beautiful, and how that sunlight is moving onto the leaves of that tree is really gorgeous. And that green is exquisite in those leaves. And oh, look at that. And then you find yourself off in a different direction. And you'll find yourself moving in that constructive phase. And then again, what will happen? You get pulled back into the loop because it's practiced. And then you work again, that constructive phase. And then you'll get pulled back down into that loop until eventually you're more conditioned, you're more familiar with the constructive energy than the destructive energy. I hope that makes sense, and I hope that is valuable. And honestly, if you take that one tool, it will change your life if you use it. If not, it's just a nice little thing we talked about tonight, and that's fine. But if you're really wanting to move into a place of freedom in your life, then do it. Or contact me and I can move you through this process. So the fifth topic that I wanted to discuss was how to be at peace with your past, no matter what has happened. As I was just mentioned, the willingness to move beyond is, I think, one of the most important things. You see people that have been through horrendous things in their life. Two people could go through the same experience, and one of them will move on and have a great life, and the other person will wither and die and ruminate about it for the next 40 years. So what is it really, that allows us to have a different experience of our life, no matter what has happened? And it really is a choice. And until we see that we have a choice, till we see that we're empowered internally from our own perceptions, our own mental and emotional constructs, then we're in the state of victimhood. And that can be a very compelling place to stay. All of these states, anger, depression, anxiety, grief, loss, they can all be very compelling. So the willingness for freedom has to be more interesting to you. Not just from, oh yeah, of course I want to be free. Sure, we all do. But what are the steps you're taking? What is the practice? What is the sadhana that you're actually integrating into your moment-to-moment awareness? And if you don't have one, then you will likely stay in that loop. If you don't have a practice that you're working with. In my teacher training, a lot of my Ayurvedic yoga teacher training is self-mastery for these teachers so that they can be leaders in their classes and in their communities instead of just another yoga teacher. God only knows we don't need another yoga teacher. But what we do need really are leaders, are people that are embodied, that aren't just standing at the front of yoga class saying all the pretty nice things about breathing and being in your body and blah, 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 blah. We've all heard it a million times. Who cares? What we need are people that have embodied the teachings, not that have recited the teachings, that can parrot the teachings, but people that in their life are doing the practice. And until we get really honest with ourselves about how we're relating to our own mind and emotions and our own beliefs and our past and our history, and if we're stuck in that past and looping around, we will not be free. And here's the catch, right? We can't force forgiveness. We can't force freedom. But grace will come and release us through the moment-to-moment awareness and practice, through loving kindness to ourselves and others. So I really believe that how we can be at peace is understanding and really getting that our soul is bigger than the circumstance. Whatever you have been through in this life, however horrendous it may have been, your soul is bigger than that experience. Otherwise, you would not be here. You would not have lived through what you've been through. But until we can see that, often the experience will overwhelm us. Often the situation or circumstance can feel too much. There was something that at the time of my partner's death, my bioenergy teacher, he said to me, he said, "You're bigger than any obstacle." And I wrote that down. I still have it on my fridge. I just wrote, "I'm bigger than any obstacle." And I saw that, and in some moments, I didn't believe it at all. I just wanted to curl up and die. And I look at that today on my fridge, and I'm like, yeah, that is so true. I am bigger than any obstacle, and so are you. You are so much bigger than your life circumstance and your life situation and your daily stresses and struggles. So connecting at a soul level, connecting into the brilliance of who you are, the energy, the infinite power and potential that is within you, connecting to that is the miracle. And connecting to that is the truth of who you are, and that is what will lift you up and carry you through your life. Not staying focused on what happened or what didn't happen or the situation. But who am I? Who am I really? Who am I at my essence? If you take away all the labels, all the stories, take it all away, strip it all back, take it all away, 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 and what is left? What remains? Some of you have been through situations that have torn you to that place, that have brought you to your knees, that you know what remains. And others of you in this life will have to endure those experiences that will take you to your knees, that will be the greatest gift in your awakening of yourself into that true relationship of knowing who you are when all of it's taken from you. So focus on the light. Focus on the light and allow the integration of the shadow. So allow the shadow to come, to be there, to be with it, to develop a relationship to it. But just don't feed it constantly. Focus on the light. Focus on the truth of who you are. Very different from sugarcoating. So please don't misunderstand my words. Please don't misunderstand what I'm communicating here. Go into the shadow without fear that it will swallow you whole. The darkness will not overwhelm you. It will not take you down as long as you keep that light, right? We want to dispel darkness, we just bring more light into the situation. That can be as simple as lighting a candle. That can be as simple as spending more time in the sunshine or watching comedies. Bring the lightness. Bring the joy. It's there. It's all around us. So these are the points I wanted to connect with you on. I think it's really important that the darkness, especially as we go, for those of us in the Northern Hemisphere anyway, as we go into the dark months, you know, the night is coming earlier and earlier. We turn inwards, we hibernate more. So that darkness can be even more present, and it can be even more isolating or scary as we have to sit in this dark space. But I'd love to share an opportunity that I have for you. If this kind of exploration intrigues you, if you're really ready to be free in your life, whether that's physically free, if you're dealing with symptoms or health issues, mentally or emotionally free, what I've done is essentially take the last 20 years of my life's work, and I've created a program, a 3-month mentorship program, and it's going to be online. It's going to be a small group for people that are really ready. And it's going to be a merging of Ayurveda. So the first month we really focus on, not solely, but we focus on the physical body through the lens of Ayurveda, of getting the physical body, your container, into a really healthy and really vibrant place. We'll also be drawing on the wisdom of yoga, of neuroscience, and moving into a form of self-mastery. Well, that word can be a little funny, so I'm calling it the inner empowerment mentorship. It was the inner mastery, but it's not about perfection. This program is not about making you perfect or giving you more things to do. In fact, it's about streamlining and allowing to fall away what is no longer serving you physically, mentally, emotionally, energetically, so that you can really be like that phoenix rising from the ashes. And I'm so passionate about this because I see in my clients week to week the suffering that has come, and I see how we don't need to suffer. You know, pain is inevitable, but the suffering is optional, and I feel like I've lived that truth, that you don't have to suffer anymore. I'm going to pop open my brand new website for you, which is, as I said, it's not the finished product. Can you see on your screen there? Just nod if you can see that this is okay. So this online inner mastery mentorship program is for you. So if this calls to you, if you're like, yeah, that's me, if you're looking for guidance about what and how to eat for your unique body, mind type and Ayurvedic constitution, it's for you if you're willing to dive deep into the behind the scenes areas of your life that you've been ignoring, deflecting, or hoping will change on their own. It's also if you're needing support and inspiration to anchor in true gratitude and self-acceptance into your day-to-day reality. If you want to be more committed to focusing on what's right with you or your life, not what's wrong. And if you feel that you would like a mentor for this that can help you address your physical challenges as well as understand the mental, emotional, and spiritual aspects, the wholeness of being. And if you're open to using group dynamics to amplify your own healing and growth, as well as be part of a community of other like-minded people wanting to live their highest potential. So if you're ready to allow yourself full permission to shine your light, to feel great, then this program is for you. And I would really like to share with you, this is a client that I started seeing over the last couple months, this wonderful, delightful woman, April. And this is what she sent me the other day. She said, I came to Manduri because I was fed up with feeling confused, exhausted, crappy, and generally off course in my life. I knew I needed help and guidance that went far beyond standard allopathic medical approaches. Manduri has helped me guide me past numerous self-created obstacles and self-limiting beliefs, things that neither doctors nor therapists have been able to do. Thank goodness I worked through my resistance to investing in my personal well-being. Manduri met me exactly where I was. I don't know what to eat. I'm tired all the time. My digestion doesn't work. I hate my job, among many more complaints. She listened with love and she gave me tools that work. The benefits of working with Madhuri are real. Long-term digestive or elimination problems cleared up almost immediately. But the truly incredible thing about working with her is that she has the wisdom, knowledge, and spiritual psychological insight to go far beyond dealing with specific symptoms. With Madhuri's guidance, I am retuning all aspects of my life, body, mind, external circumstances, coming into a state of balance and reconnecting with my authentic self. I am, in short, coming into my own, and Madhuri is the guiding force behind that. I've learned that significant change and moving past long-standing issues does not have to take a long time. Positive change can happen in an instant. I wholeheartedly recommend Madhuri to anyone who feels even slightly off course. If you feel stuck mentally, physically, or even if you feel like you just need some guidance and support to push through a fuller, richer, more authentic life, make the investment in your own well-being and allow Madhuri to guide and support you on your journey. And this is a woman that came to me in a very dark place, had suffered from many, many years of depression. And in a very short period of time, her energy has changed. As she said, her digestion has improved. I feel like the tools that I've taken from the last 20 years from my own life experience that I've been working with her on, it makes it so satisfying to be like, it works. And it works. And to see her just moving forward in such a beautiful direction. So that's just to give you some idea of the work that we'll be doing together in this program. Even though it's a group program, and not even though, I think that can be a much more powerful way to work as well, is in a group dynamic. So I'm going to just take you quickly through the different modules, and then I'll jump into Q&A. Any questions that you have or insights from our call together tonight, or anything you want to share, I would love to hear from you. So to run through the 12-week intensive, it's going to be online classes. You're going to get priority email support from me. Essentially think of it as literally a 3-month program that you're going to be in connection with me and supported by me and this group as we go through on a level that is not there to overwhelm you. So that's my skill, is how much content to feed, and more about the integration embodiment. So the month number 1 is really, as I mentioned, the focus on the physical. This will all be woven in together, but we're really looking through that Ayurvedic lens. So we've got awaken, and then number 1. So we're really setting a strong container and intention. Modules 2 to 4 on Ayurveda. As we shift into the second month, you'll already be feeling a huge shift and transformation in your life from the Ayurvedic practices that I will be sharing with you. Then we go into, I've taken this from the topic of tonight's webinar, Navigating the Darkness. So we start to kind of clear out the deeper aspects of mental, emotional, and energetic blockages. Clearing blame, resentment, and victimhood. Wouldn't that be nice? Energy medicine, something I'm very passionate about and will teach you how to work with. And then we have an integration module to make sure that we're all really cohesive. The third month, or the third phase, is looking at intuition and how you can harness your intuition. I get a lot of people that are like, how do you eat? Are you vegetarian? And I say to people, I'm like, I'm an intuitive eater, which sounds kind of woo-woo and airy-fairy, but it's really the truth of how I eat is I listen to my body. So if I'm like, today I need turkey and pumpkin pie, and that was yesterday and today, then I'm going to listen to that. And it comes from a real deep place. And it never used to be like that. I had relationship with food that I would say was less than healthy and overeating. And I feel that I'm in a place in my life that it's really a conversation with my body. And so I want to teach that to you as well, about harnessing your intuition, not just about food, but about all things in your life. Authentic expression, creation, activating potential, and then embodied living. So these are the modules you can look on here if you want to go kind of into more depth. What is in these modules? What is in these programs, or what is in the program itself? So my new website that's half up here is madhuriayurvedayoga.com/MM/. So it's essentially my same website right now, madhuriayurvedayoga.com with the /mm/. So /mm/ is where you can find this information. And I'll send it to you in an email with the recording of this call as well. So this is really a learning and growth experience, and I'm going to teach you the skills that I use in my life, not just concepts or ideas, but literally how I live a life of health and of vibrancy and of freedom. Not all the time, but a lot of the time. And where are we here? Oh, and there's a bonus here too. I'm going to have a 1-hour group follow-up session after the 3 months, and I'm going to interview a very special guest and send that. That's just going to be for this group also. So if this doesn't resonate with you and you're like, I don't want to do a group thing, I'm not into the group thing, but I want to work with you one-on-one. I do work with people one-on-one. The investment in a 3-month or 5-month, a long-term program working with me is about $2,300. So you can do that if that's your thing. If you feel like, I want this information, I want to really move in my life and grow and thrive, and if you feel like this is a mode for you, these phases, and that this is you, then this program is $900 investment for the 3 months, or you can pay in installments so that it becomes much easier for your pocketbook, and that's just $315 per month for 3 months. So all you would have to do to register is sign up for $315 and you're good to go. This is going to be a small group program, so we're going to work really closely together. And I think the biggest thing to ask yourself, if you're like, yes, and then, the mind comes in with all the different excuses of time, of energy, of money, just ask yourself what the cost of not doing it is. So if you are spinning in a cycle that you've been in, and maybe you've gone off to different healers or different practitioners for months or years even, if it's not working for you, ask what is the cost of not taking action, of not doing it. So if it is a yes in your body, if you're like, yes, but then all the mind comes in to judge, then definitely I would say, what is it going to be in 6 months or a year or 5 years if you were in the same place that you're in today, if that is a place of struggle? And what I've noticed in my practice is really the number one obstacle that I see with people not getting results, even if they're just coming for an Ayurvedic consultation, is that we all need support to get a different result. I've seen this over and over again. It's very difficult to change our habits, and that's what needs to happen to get a different result. So that's really the number one obstacle I see, is people don't have consistent support. That's why I wanted to make this 3 months. So you're going through a phase of your life. The second one that I see is people don't have someone or something to be accountable to. So this program my hope is that you will get the support, the accountability piece, and a whole lot more, a whole lot more. And the first 5 people to register, if you're keen, is the first 5 people will receive either my my Ayurvedic for Real Life online program, my online Ayurvedic weight loss and cleanse program, or my chakra energy balancing online program. So you can choose either one of those programs that are valued up to $350 for the first 5 people to register. So that's what I have for you this evening as far as content from our call, and as far as sharing with you my next offering that I'm so stoked about. Like I say, I've been working on this for about 9 months and have a killer program put together for you. So I would be happy to take any questions. So let me just see. If you have a question, I don't think you can unmute yourself. So if you have a question, just type in the chat and then I'll unmute you. Unless you can, I don't know what you're seeing on your screen, but if you can unmute yourself, feel free. And then I will, and then just speak up. And if you can't, just write in the chat your name and then I'll unmute you. I think that's the best way to do it. Unless you have a better way. Oh, hello? Anybody? And I would love to hear too, if you have any insights or anything that we talked about tonight that has impacted you, or that you're like, hey, that resonates with me. I'd love to hear from you as well. What stood out for you from our call tonight, if there was one thing. Genevieve, can I unmute you? I'll unmute you and feel free. Hi.
Hi, Midori.
How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Good, thank you. What's your question?
So my question is, I lost my job back in June, and I took the opportunity during the summer to get certified as a life coach, and I'm just starting to move into growing my business and my practice and honing my skills as a coach. And I spent the summer really regaining self-confidence and breaking up with urgency and feeling as though, feeling lost and feeling like I didn't have a sense of purpose and feeling like I needed to hurry up and get a job. And that maybe I was making the wrong choice to move into a different career path because I spent 11 years moving into the one that I was currently in. And through a talk that was done by Megan Monahan at Wanderlust as well, on meditation, I really started to, come to believe before Wanderlust that meditation was going to be the catalyst in really solidifying that shift for me in a positive direction, and gaining my new sense of purpose and my belief in self and where I was going in my journey. And so I've been doing Gabby Bernstein's May Cause Miracles. I am at day 22, and also a meditation challenge. So, with yoga teacher training, I went really deep. With my coach training, I went really, really deep, and I learned a lot about myself in both of those processes. And I signed up for a course, a 6-month course, to work with a business coach to learn how to move into this new realm, this new journey. And it was a really big deal to invest that money. So it was a lot. And it was very scary. And at the same time, I was offered a business proposal to go into business with someone to start something new and unique in the community in my current field. And so when that happened, after I had already kind of made the choice that I was going to make this investment in myself and my new path, and meditating on a regular basis, morning and night, for almost 3 weeks now, all of a sudden I've had this extreme emotional shift. And I apologize if this is taking a long time to explain, but a very extreme emotional shift of extreme, sorry.
It's okay.
Extreme sadness. And it's I feel like it's taken me back to where I was when I lost my job in June.
Yeah.
And I went for a run on Friday because I really don't understand where this is really coming from, because I really was in a very unique place for myself before I made the decision to make that investment, and before I started this regular meditation. And I did make Cause Miracles because I thought it would be beneficial in working with my clients in the future.
Mm-hmm.
But this emotional state that I'm in, literally, you talked about being brought to your knees. And when I went for my run on Friday, I literally, when I got deep into the forest, I felt like I could just go to my knees, and I had to just bend over and just stop.
Yeah.
And it was all coming out, but it's taken me to a really dark, scary place. And I don't really know what is at the surface of it, but all I know is that I want so badly to move away from the emotions that I'm feeling right now. And is it, in your experience, is it just sort of maybe normal when you move into a meditation like that and it's something new for you, that this just kind of happens?
I don't know if there's any normal, but it doesn't matter because this is your experience. So it's like whatever you're experiencing is your experience, and there's nothing wrong with your experience. And this is where it does get sticky when we move into these dark nights of the soul, or move them through periods of darkness. If we don't have a guide to help us navigate through these periods, it can be very discombobulating. It can even feel like we're dying, like, because on some level the ego is very threatened, and parts of us may be dying, but it can feel so overwhelming at times. So it's really important not to run away. As you said, I just want to move away from what you're feeling. And that's important, that you don't move away from what you're feeling. But at the same time, unless you have that support and that guidance, it can be a very frightening place. So meditation can definitely bring up things. And I was speaking at the National Ayurvedic Medical Association conference the other year, and it's giving a talk to a whole room of Ayurvedic practitioners and doctors. And I was saying that meditation isn't appropriate all the time. And one woman was like, she was just offended, and meditation is good all the time for everybody. And I was like, I don't think so. It literally took me probably till about 6 months ago to start meditating again. After my partner died, I was like, I mean, initially I couldn't even sit still. I couldn't be with my mind. It was so traumatic and so painful that to sit and meditate would have amplified that to a very disturbing and very unhealthy degree. So I think it's also, knowing what we're at, and because I don't know you, and we're just speaking here, definitely not giving advice to follow if it doesn't feel right for you, Genevieve, but meditation may or may not be the thing that you need in this moment.
Yeah, I get that.
Yeah. I think definitely having a space where you can be held metaphorically, psychically, energetically, is really important for you to move through the transition and through this process that you're going through. And reaching out, not cutting off from people, and making sure that you do have support is essential, that you don't get swallowed into the darkness.
Yep, that's what I'm really trying to make sure that I don't get swallowed into the darkness. I've been trying over this past weekend to just move into, I forgive myself for having this thought, and I choose another thought. I choose love instead, and I really don't know what else to say in that moment. I need to be able to get out of bed in the morning.
Yeah. Do you know the Ho'oponopono prayer?
No, I don't.
So it's a really beautiful prayer and mantra, and I'll take us all through it right now. So feel free to put your hands on your heart, and you can close your eyes wherever you are. Take a couple of deep breaths. And you can just mentally repeat this mantra within your own mind. It's very simple. The mantra is, I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. So staying in this mantra, staying in this state I would say if you're going to do meditation right now, I would just do this mantra for like 5 minutes a day. That would be my recommendation. I don't know what kind of meditation you're doing, but if it's anything that isn't a heart meditation, then I would avoid it right now.
Yes, thank you. And I am aware of that meditation. I just didn't know what it was called because I've heard you say it before.
Yeah, it's so simple and beautiful. It's from the healers in Hawaii. It's an ancient Hawaiian prayer and mantra. So
Thank you, Midori.
You're welcome. I have a question typed in from Joanne Maduri about authenticity. I'm an optimist and pretty good about the positive self-talk, but would welcome guidance to explore the shadow and work through that in a healthy way. Does this sound like it could be covered within the scope of your course? Absolutely. Yeah, we're going to definitely be diving into the shadow in the course and how to work with it and give you actual tools. We've given you tools this evening, but through the context of the program, you're going to have the support to implement them and that continual check-in and, hey, is this working? What's going on? What's not working? What's coming up in your life? Because as we move through a period of 3 months, life is still happening. And that's what I like about it, right? Is that life is happening and you get to weave in these new tools. So yeah, exploring the shadow and work through that in a healthy way. Yes, definitely. That's what we're going to be focusing on and part of this program, Joanne. And if you have more questions, feel free to email me. And I'm happy if any of you are interested in doing the course, but have a couple more questions or want to have a phone conversation about it, then I'm happy to connect with you that way as well. So any other questions or insights, anything that you'd like to share that really stood out for you from this evening? What was most helpful? So you can just type your name in the chat and then I'll unmute you. And if not, I know we've gone over time and I apologize for taking a little bit longer. Kelly, you're awesome, Maduri. Thank you. You're so welcome. Amy, thanks, Maduri. It's given me some food for thought. Great to see you and hear you. Thank you, Amy. So good to see you guys who've come out on the video, and so wonderful to spend some time with you this evening. I will send you the recording of this call if you want to go back and readdress any of the sections that we talked about, the 5 sections, and listen to it again. I really encourage you. I kind of went through a whole lot of information actually, and a whole lot of content of years and years of things that I've discovered. So I do encourage you to go back and listen again and listen with fresh ears to things, and just take one thing. Just take one thing that stood out for you and work with it, use it. And that's really how transformation happens, is the daily consistent use of something, not just the idea of it. But if there's no final questions or comments, then I will leave you there. And again, I appreciate you and your beautiful faces showing up here. And I look forward to connecting with you. Feel free to drop me an email anytime. Let me know if there's certain topics you're interested in for webinars, or I'm happy to definitely create webinars on various topics if there's a lot of interest in them. So feel free to reach out to me. And my new website will be coming, I hear, within the week. So keep posted. And I gave you that link to kind of take a quick peek at the half done one. We've still got some work on that to do, but it's maduriayurveda.com/mm/. So that's how you can sign up for the program. And that's how you can kind of look at where the new website is going. All right. Well, lots of love to you guys, and take care. I hope this has been of great value for you in your life and for moving forward. Lots of love. Bye. Good night.